Wednesday of the month. So our next session is with Aston. So Aston's going to be talking to us about the metaverse. So it's a really interesting thing, an interesting space. I imagined by now I would be doing many more meta meetings. I imagined by now I would be doing virtual reality and augmented reality, everything. But I don't seem to do anything apart from play computer games on it. And so that seems to be the space where I have encountered this. Aston's going to come and talk to us about where it is, where it's going, how we can adopt it, how we can think about it. So from our point of view, we've been trying to work out how do we get to something that's approaching carbon limits and stuff. And the only way we can do that is by nobody going anywhere. If nobody wants to go anywhere, then actually something like a virtual meta space seems like a good idea. However, this still doesn't seem to come into fruition. Yeah, and so Aston's going to come next month and come and talk to us about it. I know the 18th is during half term, so I know that people might be doing other things, going off skiing and exciting things. Maybe do some meta skiing. That's much better. And you can do that instead. But yeah, please sign up for that. You'll also have noticed, those of you who have been connected to us for a while, we are moving slowly away from meetup.com. So we have a meetup page. Meetup has been good in the past. We have 2,000 people on that meetup group. We have no idea if they ever come and look at it, connect to us, do anything with it. We send messages into the blind in it. And so what we are doing is moving to a platform called Luma. So Luma is a free platform. It allows us to collect information. It allows us to connect with you as individuals much closer. If you do not want messages from Luma, Luma will allow you to opt out of them in the same way as any kind of other platform. But we're moving from meetup.com to luma.com. It's going to take us about 6 months to do it, we think, because we've got 2,000 people on the meetup group and we need to kind of gently move them across. So, but every meetup page I will send to you guys will also have a Luma link on it. Every message we send out from the community will have a Luma link on it. So it allows us to kind of manage the community in a slightly newer, better way. And also Meetup wants to charge us loads more money. So that's good. So Luma is the future for us. It's sort of like the cool younger brother of Eventbrite. Cool. So with no further ado, I will hand over to Lee. So I met Lee first about a year ago when we were doing a session with Dave Snowden at our office in London. So Lee came along to that and it was great. It was a really good session. A really interesting couple of days. I'm really looking forward to see what Lee has to talk to us about digital inclusion. Let me try and work out where that is. I think that is. Cool. Round of applause for Lee, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to be hovering around this area, not doing too much work, walking around because we're getting audio off the two microphones on these two laptops. Stuart's got the microphones. So hopefully this display is all right. It's very black at the moment. So
Turn it down because
the first one was very bright. Yeah, you're right. Super. Yeah, that's a bit better. So yeah, hopefully this shouldn't get too bright for people. So I'm Lee. I'm a product manager. I've been involved in product leadership for the last 7 years or so. I won't talk too much about myself because we've got a lot to cover here in this session. What we're going to be talking about is accessibility. What we and the companies we work for are doing or not doing, as the case may be, to make sure that the products, the websites, the tools, the services we build and procure are designed to allow everyone to use them. We are not excluding people because of their impairments or differences. And it's a really important subject. And I'll talk about how I kind of come to being really involved in this in a little bit. But anyone who, I'm going to have to pop out of presentation mode for this because we were struggling with getting Mentimeter to actually work the way we wanted to. So those of you who've been to this session before probably know the dreaded Mentimeter polls. This question we're asking here is not to question anyone's knowledge or understanding about accessibility. It's not a test. It's to work out how people feel like the companies they work for address this topic. So we have a question here. My company takes accessibility seriously and does all it can to be compliant. It's a statement more than a question. And if you go via that QR code or maybe the link there, you should get some options from which you can select what you think is right based on how truthful or not that statement might be. And you can see some people are already jumping in, so please go ahead and do that. We'll give a minute or two while people answer that, and while we're waiting for that, I'll start caveating this session. First caveat is I'm not a web accessibility expert. I came to this quite late. I was embarrassingly ignorant about it until maybe a couple of years ago when I did an online course about this. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And we all have different experiences in life. So some people may have a very real and direct personal connection with accessibility and disability. Some people through their friends or family might have good experience, or even within through our work colleagues. So we all have different experiences. I say that because I don't want anyone to be thinking, why am I listening to this moron tell me stuff I already know? So the second caveat is that the way I like approaching this presentation, I've done this a couple of times, is that this really is the story about my journey with this topic, not really teaching other people how to approach it. If people learn something from this, that's fantastic, but this is really the story about how I came to be involved in accessibility. Let's put that back into presentation mode. I forgot the QR code's popped up there, so that should be enough time. And thankfully, there were the answers I was kind of expecting. This one we can't actually see is my company does absolutely nothing. I can see someone has answered for that one. Most people say they dabble, but it's not a key concern for them. And I mean, one person has said that everything that their company does has an accessibility first lens on it. That's really great to know, wonderful. But these were kind of how I thought this would play out. I'd be really worried if everyone said that their companies do everything accessibility and everything that they focus on is accessible and they know everything about it, because if that was the true, then we'd probably be having some quiet time for the next 25 minutes because I've got nothing else to say. So that's good. That puts us in a good kind of mind frame of where people are. So I want to talk a little bit about what disability is, and more importantly, how that perception has changed over time, because it is very different to how it used to be. So back in the 80s, the World Health Organization described disability as being a lack of ability to perform an activity considered normal for a human being. What I really don't like about this statement is how callous that really sounds when you're talking about another person, and you can feel the ownership being pushed on the individual. But that has changed over time. So the WHO now say that it's not just a health problem, it's a complex phenomenon between a person's body and the society in which they live. So much more kind of inclusion there, and a shared responsibility for what we're looking at. So there's a theory, a school of theory, the social model of disability. You can find loads about this online, lots of essays, lots of articles, but the central sort of idea behind this is that people are disabled by barriers in society, not by their impairment or difference. So if we take an example, someone who is a wheelchair user, if a bus has hydraulics that allows it to drop to curb height, if there is space on the bus designated for wheelchairs where that person can sit and be comfortable, then they're not disabled from catching that bus. They're able to do that. Same way as if there's a ramp into a building instead of just stairs, they're able to access that facility. And again, if there's disabled parking with wider spaces around the vehicle, more room to maneuver, then their impairment is there, but they're not disabled from achieving these activities. You can also reframe that as well. If you think about a parent with a pram, if they can get on the bus easy, if they can take the pram up the ramp rather than trying to hoik a pram up every individual step. Again, parent and child parking with more space. They have a situational impairment, being the buggy, not the baby. The buggy is the impairment in this scenario, but they're not being restricted from achieving these activities. So even when you're removing these barriers, it's more beneficial for people than just people with what would more traditionally be called disabilities. So I'm going to run through some example impairments here. There is quite a lot on this slide. I'm just going to do one example just because I have a mind on the time and I haven't started my timer. So we'll just run through the first one. So as an example, blindness, someone who is completely blind, is actually incredibly rare and extreme form of an ocular impairment. What's much more common is someone having poor eyesight. So in this room alone, there's several people wearing glasses, maybe more wearing contact lenses, that you have an impairment, but you're able to take advantage of wonderful advancements and inventions and technology to aid you to see better. I used to have terrible eyesight. I had laser eye surgery just because of that exact thing. I was worried if I lost my glasses, I would really be stuck. If I wasn't somewhere where I recognized, I would really be lost. Crossing the road, I tried it once without my glasses on, and it was terrifying. I didn't do it in the end because I felt so exposed and so vulnerable. -7, -7.5, in case anyone was wondering. That's why I had laser eye surgery. Color blindness as well, incredibly common, especially in men. And in certain circumstances, that might be quite disabling. And also, as I mentioned before, situational impairment. So bright sunshine, if you're very bright day, you're trying to look at your phone, you can't really see because of the glare, that will stop you achieving activities. On your modern smartphones, you can turn the contrast up to help combat that. So you can use different tools and features to kind of get over that impairment. We'll come back to phones in a little while. But there are a number of different examples here. I won't go through all of them, as I say, but we're moving from extreme forms of an impairment, which when people say disability, that may be the first thing that comes to mind, but there are so many other forms of impairment that are much more common, or situational impairments. So this does have an effect on revenue. If we are not making sure that our websites, our tools, our products are built with accessibility in mind, it has a great effect on our revenue, and a lot more than people may think. So I'm going to say there's a lot of numbers on this slide. I've done this presentation before in a much longer format, so I'm going to skip through some of the detail here, but I'll just call out a couple of points. So according to the House of Commons Library, just under 17 million people in the UK had a disability in the 23-24 financial year, so making up 25% of the total population. That does sound quite a lot, but if you think about some of the impairments we have here, for example, epilepsy, ADHD, dyslexia, these are things that were not understood particularly well in the past. Over time, they're becoming more understood. We're able to diagnose them easier these days, and they being brought in under that umbrella of disability. So when you think about instead of just the extremes, but the more common forms of impairment as well, that number doesn't actually seem that far-fetched. There's lots of numbers, as I said, on this slide. So I won't run through them all, but I'll talk about the next one because it's quite important. I've got a lot to say about this report, the Clickaway Pound report, and they estimated back in 2019 that there's just over 7 million people in the UK with access needs. So not everyone with a disability necessarily has access needs when it comes to utilizing digital products, but of those, just over 7 million people do, and that's over 10% of the population. We're going to run through a lot about this Clickaway Pound report because it's a really interesting artifact, and if you do get a chance to go and have a look, it's online, accessible, free. You can go and have a look at that. But this is a report where they survey people with disabilities and access needs about their usage of the internet and particularly about the retail space on the internet as well. And in that survey, they found that 69% of people with access needs click away from inaccessible sites. They won't, to a certain extent, won't just continue to struggle to try and complete the actions they want to on that site. They won't ask someone for help. They won't contact that business to try and access those services or that information in other ways. They'll just go somewhere else. 86% of those people limit their shopping to sites they know are barrier-free. So if you lose that business, it might be really hard to get it back. 75% feel that accessibility is more important to them when making purchasing decisions than price. So that is money that you may be getting that is now being spent with your competitors. And that adds up to £17.1 billion is being lost by businesses because they're not taking accessibility seriously, and that is being spent with their competitors who are. Now, the Office for National Statistics said that the UK online retail spend last year was 127 billion. So that 17.1 billion is not an insignificant portion of that, that value. Now, as I mentioned before, this Clickway Power Report, these are numbers from 2019. So this is pre-COVID, when the internet became even more important to our everyday lives, a real essential tool. Now, the reason why, I'll talk why it's the 2019 report. So these numbers and a lot of the information in this report, I've seen quoted by the UK Parliament. I've seen them being quoted by Scope, the disability charity in the UK. I've seen them in accessibility white papers from Microsoft, I think Google as well. So, you know, these institutions respect these numbers and use them to quote in their literature about this topic. But when I contacted the group who run this report about a year ago, because I was really interested in what the post-COVID numbers would be, they told me they couldn't see themselves running the report because they just couldn't secure funding to do it again. So I think that kind of shows, this might be a little unfair, but there are businesses, organizations who do pay lip service to this topic, but no one's really interested in actually funding it. So I think that kind of still shows the lack of involvement and experience and understanding around this topic. So as I mentioned before, accessibility, web accessibility is all about making sure that our products and our websites, etc., are accessible to people with access needs. But good accessible design is actually beneficial to all of us. So we're going back to the Clickway Pound report now. So we've got some numbers from their 2016 report and 2019 report. And part of that survey was asking people about issues they faced, the people with access needs, about what the issues they faced when using online services. The biggest one by far was crowded pages with too much content. The next really big one was capture test. This wasn't part of the 2016 report, but it was a massive response with the 2019 report. I don't think there's probably anyone here or online who hasn't struggled with trying to complete one of these things before. If you think about someone trying to complete one of those because they have to use a screen reader that narrates and dictates what's happening on the page, or they're using an external peripheral to help them access and utilize that website, how much harder that must be for people doing that. Another one, poor link info and navigation. Filling in forms, a massive problem for people with access needs. Forms are often just built really poorly, and because people don't have the knowledge of how to do that correctly, they just build forms that are very difficult to fill out. And usually the answer to those is actually really simple technical changes, and just people just don't understand. Also, poor legibility, including color, font, etc. Distracting moving images and graphics, kind of like this presentation. Poor keyboard access, poor screen reader access, and then others. And even though these are answers by people with access needs about the issues they face, what really struck me when I viewed this is I'm not someone who considers themselves to have access needs, but those top 6 issues are all things I've struggled with personally with websites, and things that have frustrated me, and things that sometimes I've mainly just leave a website and go elsewhere just because they've really annoyed me. So even though we're talking about access needs, these are things that actually do affect many more of us. So a lot of people will probably will have heard of the Web Accessibility Content Guidelines, WCAG. They are maintained by the World Wide Web Consortium via their Web Accessibility Initiative branch, I think would be a good word to describe that. And usually when companies say they are complying with accessibility guidelines, it's usually WCAG that they're referring to. But often it's just lip service as well. I've worked for a lot of companies who've done next to nothing for accessibility. They have an accessibility statement on their website and say, we adhere to this and we're doing everything we can, and they're doing absolutely next to nothing. These guidelines provide a list of what makes up good web design and what you can do to try and improve your sites. And I pulled out a few different examples from these guidelines of what they say good web design looks like. And so they say that websites should make text and readable and understandable. They should give users enough time to read and use content, so no extreme timeout functions, no fast-moving carousels, things like that. They should help users navigate and find content. They should make functionality available from a keyboard. They should help users avoid and correct mistakes, and they should make content appear and operate in predictable ways. Again, all from the Web Accessibility Guidelines to make websites usable by people with access needs. But personally, these are all things I appreciate in good web design, and have been, again, frustrated by websites that don't have these elements as part of their design. I mean, I'm not someone who only uses a keyboard. I use a keyboard on my machine, but I also use a trackpad, maybe a mouse. But I do use a lot of shortcut keyboards as well, tabbing through forms, copying and pasting, selecting text, etc. So I do really appreciate keyboard accessibility, but obviously very valuable to people who can only use a keyboard to navigate sites. But yeah, so these are all examples of what makes up really good design, web design. Again, it's design that actually benefits everybody, not just people with access. So I'm going to quickly buzz through. Time is it? So I'm going to quickly buzz through some business cases. I won't talk too much about these because there are a lot, but if anyone is thinking that this is a topic they need to raise more with their management and try and get things moving, some of these might be really valuable things to kind of bring up. So business case benefits. So accessibility increases your market reach, obviously, because you're expanding your customer base, and it increases revenue because of that very fact as well. It drives innovation. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about this because this is really interesting. So earlier on, I mentioned about your mobile phone being able to change the contrast on it. There are a number of different features you might have on your smartphone, being able to increase the text size, for example. These are things that were built for accessibility in mind, but they're actually things that start having a broader usage as well. So my mum is not someone with access needs. She's 70, but she just has her font size is much bigger on her phone than it is mine, just because she finds it easier to use than in that way. An interesting one that's been mentioned in the last year or two is that younger people, when they're watching online content via streaming platforms, etc., are actually watching it with subtitles switched on. So, for example, young people whose English is their first language are watching English language programs with English language subtitles. Obviously something built with accessibility in mind, but actually is starting to have a broader use. What else we got? So one of the very first, the earliest typewriters ever built, or in fact a couple of the earliest typewriters separately were built so blind people could write letters. And now there's probably not a day goes by that I don't use a keyboard in some form, whether it's a laptop or the screen on my phone. And so it really does. So it drives innovation. These features we build for accessibility start having broader, broader uses and become more important for more people. Just turn the laser on. Also reduces dev costs. So if you're building your website right with good design and good accessibility, it should mean you have a cleaner code base. The tools like screen readers that narrate what's happening on a web page, they use the page code to start telling the user exactly what's happening on that page. If you have poor code in your site and it's all muddled and poorly written, those screen readers will have a much harder time describing what's on the page, and the user will really struggle to understand. If you've got a good code base, it's better to build on. It's quicker and easier to build on that. You're not dealing with technical debt. You're not introducing more bugs than you want because you're struggling with that poor kind of code base. So with an accessible product, you should have a cleaner code base, which means that dev costs come down. Improves SEO because if your videos, your images, your audio are tagged up correctly, a web browser will be able to, a search engine will be able to understand better about what the content is on this page and be able to rank your site better. It reduces risk, legal risk. There are a number of companies in the US that have been taken to court and lost and paid not unsubstantial amounts of money because they were found to not be doing what they need to do when it comes to accessibility. So Domino's Pizza, Disney, Target, the big store in America, have all fallen foul of this. And there's a legal precedent in this country through the Equality Act of 2010 that we should be making reasonable adjustments so that our tools and websites are accessible to people with disabilities. Enhances brand because it improves our reputation and we get a broader customer and workforce diversity. And kind of what I've been referring to as well, accessible design actually benefits all of us. So World Wide Web Consortium had this phrase, essential for some, useful for all. But beyond all of that, and the business case and what we tell our managers, really it's just the right thing to do. The internet is no longer a novelty. It's become such an integral part of everyday life for all of us. If you ever try and use any government functions, access to welfare or go to the DVLA website or anything like that, these journeys are all being moved to digital first experiences. So because it's becoming, as society becomes more digitized, it really is just an integral part of our lives. And because of that, it shouldn't be seen as a privilege. It really should be seen as a basic human right. And if we're excluding people from that, we're saying that those people don't really have much to offer our societies, which is obviously massively incorrect. And also, it's not just consuming things off the internet and through our products, it's also contributing to them as well. And if we don't provide people with the tools to contribute, then what we're saying is they don't really have anything worth saying, which again, of course, is absolute nonsense. So there's a lot of problems I posed. So what can we do about improving our accessibility? And is there some magical, beautiful, wonderful off-the-shelf tool out there that's going to fix all our problems? Sadly not. What time is it? I won't run through all these, but I'll call out just one of them, and that's from the Bureau of Internet Accessibility that say that 75% of accessibility issues are being missed by even the best automated tools. That's not to say that automated tools are useless and you shouldn't bother with them. They're a great place to start this journey, but they're not going to give you everything you need. You're not going to be able to beat seasoned experience or the lived experience of someone with access needs. One thing I do use a tool is this Wave tool from a group called WebAIM, who are an accessibility organization in the US. It's a browser plugin, it's free, which is why I use it. It's available on Chrome, Firefox, and Edge as well. And when you turn it on, what it will do is I've used it on the Penta Hotels Reading site, which is not a particularly big website. So, there's less opportunity for failure, but it's not doing actually too bad a job. And what it will do when you switch on, it will bring in identify all the elements where accessibility elements on the page may be. It gets a bit messy sometimes. So it gets a bit getting used to, but also raise some of areas where they consider there may be some issues with the site. In the side panel, we'll also list those out, the errors, the contrast errors, alerts, things like that. And you can click into each one of those. It'll explain a little bit around what that error is it's calling out and why. It will give links to the WCAG guidelines. It will also give some information on what you can maybe do to fix it, and it will also tell you the code snippet it's identifying that problem in as well. But again, it's not going to do everything for you. So this is all it's really doing is crawling through the site code. It's not going to be able to tell you the experience of a real person who's using accessibility tool to consume the information on the website and where they may be tripping up, because context is so important to this as well, rather than just site code. These errors it's listed, as I say, it's not doing a bad job. Not all of these might actually be problems. You might get someone who looks at it and go, actually, no, that's fine. But also, it's not going to have identified every problem that you're seeing.
Sorry, excuse me. Could you hear me?
Hello.
Could you reshare the screen, please?
Oh, reshare the screen? Oh, I think
Yeah.
you dropped.
Well, just
Darren.
Sorry to interrupt.
yeah, no worries. Sorry, how long has it been missing?
Quite a while.
You see something now?
Just the desktop. Yeah, it's showing now.
Cool.
Cheers.
Thank you. Please shout if it stops again.
So sorry about that. Google just decided that I was being boring. And so there's the first step, getting one of these tools, whether it's that tool, another one, a plugin that's going to start helping identifying these issues. And as I say, they're really useful because it does give you a starting point. It's a massive topic, this, and there are a lot of things to learn and a lot of issues that may be raised. So one of these tools is going to give you a good starting place. But what's the next steps? What can we do? Anyone who's interested in this, anyone who thinks, yeah, we probably should be doing something in our company related to this, what maybe can you go away and start looking into? The least pretty slide on my deck. The first thing I'd say is I recommend the course I did. As I say, I did a course a couple of years ago. It's incredibly eye-opening. It made me understand how ignorant I was before about this topic, how vast it is, and just how much there is to really learn beyond what maybe we all definitely understand as the basics, i.e. Font size and color contrast and things like this, exactly how broader this kind of gets. So it's a course through via the World Wide Web Consortium. You can access it through the edX website. It's a free course. I did it over, I think, 3 evenings. I really just got sucked into it, and I went through that in about 3 evenings. And it's great. Lots and lots of videos of people with access needs talking about their experiences in life, the tools they use, and the range of different tools people use to consume products, and good examples of problems they face, what they try and do to navigate them, or where they just come unstuck and go, I can't go any further. This is unusable for me. And it's really interesting and really fascinating topic. A fascinating course. As I say, it is free. If you want a certificate, I think when I did it, I think with the exchange rate, it was about £70. But I talked to my manager into paying that for me. So maybe if anyone goes and does this course, you can do the same thing. I'd also download a tool like that Wave plugin that I showed. I'm sure there's others around that work as well that might be free, but this one I've always used. So that's really useful. Go and look at your own products. Go and look at some other websites as well. I talked about the government website earlier on. That's actually a really good example of an accessible site. It's not a very interesting site to look at, but it's very accessible. BBC do a really good job as well. Some good examples. Sainsbury's aren't doing a very good job in my mind when I look at it, and some of that's to do with the branding they have, the fonts they use, the colours, etc. But yeah, it's a great tool to go and have a play around and see what's going on. If you do happen to use a tool like that and look at your own products, and if you're in a position to start identifying those issues and get them in your backlogs and make a plan of attack, talk to your team, work out what you're going to do. Are you going to have a sprint or a couple of sprints that are accessibility focused? Are you going to maybe hopefully tick a couple off each sprint because you've got capacity, because your sprint goal's gone really well? Or you're working on part of your site or your tool and you think, right, well, while we're in that code, let's clear up the accessibility issues that are being identified in that part. However you want to approach it, it's a good way. Start including accessibility targets in your team definitions of done if you have one, and if the organization doesn't have this guidance themselves. I mean, I've worked for a number of companies who really have not provided our teams with definitions of done. So most teams have just done it themselves, and those accessibility targets aren't part of the organization's considerations. So getting those into a definition of done, making sure that we don't consider this piece of work done until it's accessibility issue free, or however you might like to tackle it. So I mentioned WCAG guidelines a few times. So the Web Accessibility Initiative, who are a branch of the World Wide Web Consortium, they have a website where all those guidelines are listed. They show what good design is, they show what bad design is, how to fix those things, etc. They have a number of different resources and checklists, and they have, maybe checklist isn't the right word for this, but they have part of the site that gives you the groundings for a plan of how to start implementing this within an organization, how to talk to management, how to start planning the rollout of this, how to start initializing it and getting action on making things accessible, and also then how to sustain it. So once you get yourself in a good position, making sure things just don't roll back to how they used to be. So putting in policies and guidelines and things and processes that people work through, because what's really important with accessibility is making sure that everything that's designed has accessibility considerations from day one. It's very easy to go, we'll build something and then we'll make it accessible later, because later often never comes. There's always something else that's going to come along that trumps it. One thing is a harder thing to do, but this is what I did in my last role, is we started working with the accessibility agency. So I took a lot of the information here, and I went and talked to my directors about it. They gave us budget, and then we started talking to accessibility agencies to find one good for us. We started working with the Digital Accessibility Centre. They're based in Wales, a really great group, and they did a lot for us. They were able to run audits on our customer and our internal facing tools, providing really comprehensive documents on where they found accessibility issues, what we can do to fix them, and things like that. They run a number of training courses for us, bespoke to different roles in the company. So broader ones for people like myself, product managers, or our sort of directors and things. They put a course together for our UX and UI designers, so much more focus on that type of work. For our developers, so much more technical course. And for content creators, so people are, for our content management system of building web pages, writing copy, naming and tagging images, etc. And so focusing on that, they do a great job. And they also help with writing policy documents, putting processes together to make sure that everything that's built goes through this lens and gets sort of approved from an accessibility standpoint as well. So, if you're in a position to, and you want to go and talk to your management, some of this might be a good way to start getting budget to start working for an agency, because it's such a broad, vast topic. I can find it be very difficult to just do it all on your own without that support. So that's really helpful. Another thing, just before I move on from that, actually a really great thing they are able to do as well is most of their testers who help with the audits are people with access needs, a broad range of needs, and people who use a broad range of products and tools to help them navigate sites and tools. So they come along to the training sessions and give actual real life experiences of your product, where they've kind of struggled on the site, what they were able to do to try and circumnavigate those issues, or where they've said, I cannot use this website and I'm going to have to leave. And to see them working through that is really, really powerful. So yeah, really great experience that I do recommend. I'm not going to play these videos, but there are a couple of videos that I can definitely send the links to. This one from the World Wide Web Consortium, Intro to Web Accessibility. It's a bit goofy, but it's a good sort of intro to this topic and might be helpful if anyone was looking to go and start sharing this within their organizations. This might be a good intro for that. And from Scope, the charity, there's this video about the social model of disability, which I talked about earlier on. This is really interesting and really good video. It's a number of people with disabilities talking about themselves and how their own perception of themselves have changed over time through the lens of this social model of disability, that the ownership and responsibility doesn't just sit with them, it sits within society, and it's about all of us making sure that we're doing what we can to remove barriers for everybody. So that's the last slide. So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for no one for leaving. That's a good thing as well. Like I said at the start, I'm not an expert. If anyone has any questions, I'll try and answer them. But I did say that caveat at the front, get me out some stuff if I can't answer any questions. But thank you very much.
I'll look online, but are there any questions in the room for Lee first? Hi.
The world of AI and everything is going AI and shape and everything just wants it. How does this apply?
I'm really glad you asked about AI, because I did have a slide about AI and I took it out because I was short of time, and I thought, I'm hoping someone asks about AI. So typically about AI and how it's going to kind of change this environment and this topic is kind of what you're asking.
Yeah, and we saw the other one says, I'm assuming we treated that or something along the way we were shopping through wages and everything else, even content generation. I don't think AI at the moment is trained to be aware of an accessibility.
Yes, AI isn't really trained from an AI accessibility point of view. So this was part of my kind of software part of this presentation around, we're in the age of AI. Surely AI is going to solve all these problems. So I've got part of this that answers your question in a second. So unfortunately, AI isn't going to be a solution, not just yet. What is marketed to us, and it is marketing, what is marketed to us currently is not AI, it's not artificial intelligence, okay? They're very complex, very brilliant algorithms that are very good at pattern matching and statistical prediction of what the next right answer might be, etc. But there's no sentience there. So they can't really replicate the lived experience of someone with access needs. So, at least for now, they may be able to do them quicker, but you're not going to get much better response than just the software solutions that have been out there in the past. And also, as you were mentioning, the problem with AI is just the data sets they're being trained on are not diverse enough. We've seen this in the last few years where AI models, because of the people who are training them, they are much better at identifying individuals from particular races compared to other people from other races and white people. It's good at predicting what white people look like and other people because of who are doing the work on these things, and that really needs to train. And the same thing with people with disabilities. Those data sets are not going to be broad enough to really be able to do this work. As we, going forward in the future, use AI for more things, and we, as you said, do our shopping and our online more and more searching and things through agents and stuff. I think a lot of effort is going to need to be put in to make those tools accessible. My fear, well, I've got a a lot of fears about AI, but one of them is these companies are so driven and so desperate to just get as fast and as far as possible. It's going to be people with access needs, etc., who are just going to be left by the wayside. It's not what they're going to be able to market these products as best as they can for in their relentless drive towards domination. We'll have to see how it goes. I mean, I'm very skeptical that this is going to be great for people with access needs, but you never know. Maybe it does happen. Hopefully that answered your question as well as I could.
Let me have a look on, see if there are any questions online. Any comment online? It's that we weren't screen sharing. Online people, do you have any questions for Lee? No. Okay, well, I have one. So we as an organisation look at kind of standards like ISO and those sorts of things, from information security, quality. Is there a equivalent which is externally validated for accessibility?
I'm not sure. I think there. I'm.
It doesn't have to be an ISO one, but like because you said like people say that they are accredited, but maybe that's just nonsense.
Yeah, it's nonsense when it comes to accreditation. I think certainly when it comes to WCAG, you know, they're guidelines. They're not tests or certifications. So people do their best to try and be as compliant as possible. You know, if they are making the effort, they might not always be able to do that. And you know, things change so fast in the digital world that keeping those certifications up would be pretty hard. So I'm not sure if there is something like ISO out there that is a certification for this kind of thing. But in terms of the standard, which tends to be WCAG, there isn't certification. You might get a certification from an agency if you pay them to come and audit you, and they go, great, you're compliant. Here's a certification that no one else may care about. But yeah.
Okay. Interesting. What about government services? Because again, you said like Gov UK and everything else does a good job, and its design kind of fits into that sort of thing. Do government services have people providing government services have to be compliant to the level?
This definitely falls into the I'm not a web accessibility expert
Okay.
question. I mean, it really depends on how the government I mean, do you guys work for an agency that provides services to clients? I don't know if you sort of bring in other agencies to support you in that and kind of
not enough in my field. This is where my brain's going in terms of kind of how we do business, and how we need to validate ourselves, and how we then prove to other people that we're valid to do the work for them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the big question is what are the government doing if they are farming out those that work to other entities? Are they doing their due diligence to make sure? Now, if it's part of your contract with a client, an agency or a supplier, that these things need to be built in, then that might provide more support for you. I don't know, but I think it is as a case-by-case basis there. Definitely.
I mean, I've seen lots of interesting feedback from GDS on how they do stuff, and because they're providing standards into government digital services and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, good.
I have a quick one. Is there a market leader for this type of evaluations? So, in a market leader, actual engagements to give this kind of services.
I don't think there's a market leader because it's not a massive and therefore very competitive marketplace. You know, when we were.
I mean, I found it interesting, in fact.
Yeah.
That's getting more and more needed. So I would expect there are so many things going on in the market, but
yeah, we spoke to I think 4 or 5 different agencies when we were trying to procure some services. And some of them we didn't like in particular because of the way they approached it, their attitude. What we really liked about the Digital Accessibility Centre is that most of their testers are actually people with access needs, and that wasn't the case for a lot of the other agencies. And because of the broad range of services they were able to provide us, where some of those others weren't. I know people who have used them before, but in terms of being a market leader, I haven't really got an understanding of who the top dog is there. But there's certainly an agency that people I've spoken to have heard before and maybe utilised before as well. And yeah, a group that we really worked with really well.
So you mentioned a few brands who were US brands that were being sued basically in the US. Is there an example of somebody who's been pulled up by the Equality Act and made like a good example? Because it's like the 17.1 billion number at the start of it, like, oh, good, that's good, do that. Money, revenue, that drives decisions. But also, strangely, the avoidance of risk drives decisions. And the avoidance of risk is, well, it happened to X. Is there a UK X?
Nothing particularly major. I think if it's happened in the US, it's not too long before it starts happening here. That usually is the thing. And obviously with you know, that's kind of the stereotype of American culture is just taking everything to court. You know?
I mean,
you know, the company I used to work for, I'm not going to say who they were, but we dealt with a number of accessibility red flags that cropped up. When I started bringing this topic up, actually, and started talking to my directorship about this, where you know, the company wasn't providing letters in a digital format and could not provide letters in large font format and things like that. So we had a complaint come in, say, I cannot read this letter, I can't access it online, this is discrimination, etc. And everyone kind of ran around and panicked and said, what we can do about it. And I was saying, right, well, this is what we need to do. We need to start looking at bringing in people to help us with this. We need to look at getting an accessibility officer internally who can manage this, because I have a whole other full-time job that I can't do this myself, and I'm not an expert. And eventually they just kind of forgot about it. And unfortunately, I kind of wish that it had happened. I really wish that person had taken this a step further, but it never really transpired. And there's a number of examples that I've seen in the past where people have raised these questions, but they never kind of get picked up. So, I mean, I'm sure it's only a matter of time before it happens. It's just, it seems here that we're probably our demeanor, we're more likely to kind of tut and get grumpy and be silent rather than go to court. But I'm sure it's going to happen at some point.
Just an insight on that, I think most of the organisations that I've worked with where they've had accessibility issues raised, there's never a hard and fast deadline to say it needs to be resolved by X. It's always like communities seem to be working towards that, making it better, but I don't know if that's...
Yeah, but I think that's that Equalities Act statement is kind of vague. Where is it? It is quite a vague statement. It's like, should be seen to be making reasonable adjustments. So that is really difficult, quantifiable statement. So, you know, exactly what does that mean? And you know, the lawyers will have a field day to argue, you know, what that means and how they are or aren't being compliant. If you go too fast, this scrolls quite slow. Yes, so site owners are required to make reasonable adjustments to make their sites accessible. I mean, that's almost meaningless, really.
But it's like you say, Sainsbury's have quite a bad accessibility. I think I know someone that works there, they were saying you can't do anything because their brand colour is orange. It's like,
it's orange.
So bad for accessibility.
And serif fonts are you know, hard for legibility compared to sans serif fonts, but that's their brand. But you know, and a lot of the font sizes on their website are really small, and so that really makes the contrast difficult as well. So you know, it's some, I think because of that vagueness of that statement, you know, companies can kind of pick and choose. Actually, our branding's more important to us than maybe this is. So
It's unreasonable to change
yes.
yeah.
I think problem shouldn't be a problem for this. It's just an excuse.
More than likely, I think this is it. So it's not reasonable. change
So,
the brand.
because for instance, this creates this gender wide. And the new trend is making more dark color on the phone, and you might make the other like improve SEO, SEO, those kind of so easier to read.
Yeah.
So so you can, so since there is orange, I think.
But it's why a lot of the government websites look like this. They're
Yeah.
very black and
That's
white.
why this presentation looks like this, because I
Yeah.
didn't want to get pulled up with fancy design.
Interestingly, I was getting addicted to social media, and I asked AI what I could do to sort of make social media less appealing, and it said turn my phone to black and white. So now I'm a colorless user of mobile devices because it helps me regulate myself, and I also experience what the world is like for
Mhm.
moments,
Wow.
which I think is quite interesting.
And I mean, more features have just come up more and more on smart. I mean, I'm an iPhone user, and so a lot of websites through the apps you can turn on the readability functionality, so it takes away all that branding and stuff and gives you something much more clear. They've also got accessibility testing settings on, so you can switch the screen reader on your iPhone and then set it so it switches the screen off.
Yes.
So you can actually hear what's happening when you're trying to navigate the site with your phone and kind of experience how someone who can't see what's on the screen is actually hearing and understanding through that. I mean, it's turning it off is sometimes a bit difficult, but I've had to play with that. That's really interesting as well. So there's a lot of different tools out there to kind of help with design and things if you know where to look.
But also, by coding tools. The guy will build a website with code.
Yeah.
And it's virtually zero effort.
Yeah,
Instead of.
you're just adding context into what you have to do in instruction. I think there's another interesting benefit for that's a great one for building the thing, but from an AI point of view, there's in the medium future, AI is going to be doing a lot of the browsing and doing all that stuff for us. And so if we can make our sites accessible, then we're making them accessible for AI to navigate and find stuff and do stuff. And so therefore we will generate more business for ourselves by making our websites fast and good for AI. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you have a link on your website that says click here, that doesn't really tell you anything unless you can see the context around it, and doesn't tell a screen reader very much, and it won't tell AI very much. So if those links have actual meaningful content as part of that link, then a screen reader understands, AI will understand, and that will make it much easier for people to navigate.
Because visual computer use models at the moment are good, but they're slightly slow. And they're doing an amazing thing. Like they're looking at the screen and working out what the hell's going on and choosing what to do next. But I think there's this sort of mix between image-based computer use and then code-level computer use, which gets the kind of meta content behind that button that says click here means actually you want to check out. Yeah, really interesting.
Best way to do this from experience, your specialist people that different teams or you treat the teams properly do it. On our website, that makes sense because most of them are slightly static. But now imagine in a case where you're churning out reports from different people and different things, how does that work? Because at the end of the day, unless you want to hire a specialist for each one of the different teams that's churning out reports, might not be sustainable, and it might be the reason why most companies just ignore it.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. And I think, with that vagueness of that statement, reasonable adjustments, it also means what are our capacities within the business and what are the team sizes and things, and what money do we have to spend on this versus not. So, there can be arguments made there. It's really difficult, and it does depend on each team and each business of exactly what focus is. Do you train people up as much as possible to understand this? Do you perhaps have the budget to bring in someone who's an accessibility manager who understands this? Do you have money to spend on an agency to come and tell you this? That can be quite expensive on an ongoing basis. So it really is difficult. It really does depend on the different businesses and the teams and the skill sets you have on what reasonable adjustment actually means, I think.
I've got one final question because it affects my daughter. Why do young people put subtitles on Netflix? Why the hell does that happen?
It's
Like,
so
you mentioned it. I
distracting.
mentioned like,
It's so distracting.
I don't get it. My daughter just turns on subtitles on Netflix all the time. So I know if she'd ever been like in a particular room in our house, because Netflix then has subtitles on. I don't get it.
My wife does the same thing. I hate it. It's just so distracting.
Yeah.
I just read rather than.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was hoping you had the answer, but okay, cool.
I'm not young enough to understand.
So another round of applause for Lee. Thank you. Right, a couple of slides, and then we can go to the bar. Where's the mouse gone?
It's on the big screen.
It's on the big screen. Oh, there it is. Why has that not stopped? Because I need to kill PowerPoint. Okay, good. So thank you very much online for kind of playing along. I didn't see any questions from you, so I didn't read any out. So that's that. We have done that. We've done question and answers. So our next session is on Wednesday, the 18th of February. We'll be back in here. Aston's going to be talking to us about metaspace, AR, VR, and hopefully why we need to do more of it, or why it's not working, or whatever the thing is. His proposition is it's not dead, it's early. Yeah, so it's not quite there yet. And I'm really interested because I have a Quest 1, I have a Quest 3, and I wanted these things to be the thing, because I think metaspace is an interesting value for sustainability, for various other different reasons, for potentially maybe from an accessibility point of view. So we have metaspace to get to. I imagine the headsets are probably inaccessible in certain ways, but anyway, they always have, like, I have to put my glasses on differently. So come along to that. That's our next meetup. There are a couple of other meetups which were interesting in the local region and around. So my friend Randy, who runs Product Tank London, is speaking at Product Tank Oxford. So that is next Wednesday. So if you're Oxford end, go along to that. The other person I think used to run like Google's product team as well. So I think it's gonna be really interesting. Like Randy's a great guy. I do lots of conference speaking in and around him. So go to that. That'd be great. Scrum Master of the Universe is an online event, but Sander, previous sort of Exebia, another friend of mine, is doing a product about how you treat your products as if they were alive. And I'm like, oh, yeah, then there we go, and do that kind of stuff. And those of you who know me, anything to do with Wardley maps, I will push people towards, because I think Wardley maps are brilliant. But this one's interesting because it's during the middle of the day. So go and have a look at that. It's called Lean Tech. I think they've just changed the name of the meetup group. But it'd be really good because Patrick, who runs it, is brilliant and knows a lot of stuff about this. So he's going to be doing a lot of interesting stuff on Wardley map and strategy. And then finally, us again on the 18th. So normally this page is this full, yeah, because there's normally loads of other different options. It's not because I'm being picky. It's just because there's not so much going on. Okay, that's just the way it is. Final call is for us. So if you are interested in doing a session, we would love to hear from you. We would love to have a chat about it. Our next session is Wednesday, the 15th of April. So it's the third Wednesday of the month, every month. If you want to come and chat about it afterwards, me and Adam are here. Come and chat to us. If you know someone who'd be good, get them to come and talk to us. But otherwise, thank you very much for your time. We'd love to see you next time. We'd also love to see you bring a friend, because we've got loads of spare chairs at the moment. So we want people in person, and so that's what we're looking for. So yeah, but thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you, online. They may have gone already.
It's not relevant topic, but I learned.
So German.
German language, generally you can't use.
Yeah.
So this why we have a conversation. Stuff.
Let's send me the details. Because I like, I even, so Simon, who was going to be here tonight, was like, but he's got like 4 obvious humans in the suit. And then there's a TV and AI one.
Yes.
But nobody's got any actually in the next month. And there's enough going on.
One last thing, it's just very briefly. So I see that post about the master of the shop. I don't know if it is your role or not.
I'm not sure how you read about this in Sheffield. You're going
Last time when I applied was from one side, so contacted us, I have enough experience. I was wondering since the shipping, for instance, shall I, so I don't think I will take it.
Let's have a look.
I'll try it. So we are every last Wednesday of the month, not this one. Because my let's say co-founder, it's not founder but cooperator, we rewind it. So much was easy this month, so we postpone next month. Wednesday, so it should be 20. So you know, with yourself,
I mean, I find it unusual that we are welcoming someone in Sheffield. We work hard to do that.
I was in LinkedIn, I started on LinkedIn. It actually is one of those lines. Simon does as well. One of you missed it, you left your was it you?
I got there about 4 seconds. Which is lovely.
It starts in at 7:30, can come later as well. Thank you very much, and nice to meet you. There's something now I will share about my
As long as they just cut above that, that's all fine.
So we ended up in this kind of position where we lay on the ground in Tesco and we're going to do this. The two things can go together. Yeah. But that's the reason, other than people doing social values. Is there any other thing? No,
This is coming to the optional.
sorry? I just challenged them. Yeah, so I'm very confident in I've always been in Reading, so I come to obviously and we always just kind of saying yeah. So I can see that from my so I can walk down the hill, maybe that, so yeah, so we're in North End. It's where all space So mostly software engineering, building, start with a you would be there, yeah. Is that one way? Yes. Our main space market where we are seeing an organization in the bigger organization. I'm not going to call it everybody, it's some way. That's why we're doing some offshore. But I guess. Because of design, software is a job you can actually we've got resources. Exactly.
So then there is a need of purchase.
Adding to that,
It ends up being
like 20 years ago. It was. But the individual class, all one high frame. The individual it's not really about let me know. Yeah, exactly. Right.
what do you mean by
Good. Yeah, is that like logging in and logging off?
It's about being able to use a website.
Oh shit, that's right. So there's an interesting correlation between like blindness and how quickly there's a software engineer. There's a software engineer who just operates on with no computer, no people, and just like listens back to the code, like the code line by line. And it's like just a blur when you listen to it. But you can hear a lot of it. It's like those that you say.
Brilliant. We're talking about how AI is going to change social stuff. It's going to be really interesting.
Every time I see AI work stuff, okay, someone's going to go fucking wrong. And it's going to be AI. It's going to direct you to some shit chatbots that really can't be bothered to talk to. Sorry. Yeah, how was it? Did you teach it?
Did you learn that?
Yeah. What do you rate it as? Be as harsh as you possibly can.
Two things is Lee's presentation.
No, no. I was here there. Yeah, nice.
You're married nicely around the corner?
I couldn't be bothered to do much today, so I just put some more days on this. I'm not prepared myself. But yeah, no, it's good. Like I said, just out of curiosity, do you guys know what we're talking about? Literally down the corridor there, and left, we play ISO hangout. Every week we play more games. I mostly chat shit. Just sit in the room, stare at no.
This is a free sample.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you think? Happy vaccine, apparently. Yeah, one session. Not standing. No. Yeah. We'd rather hear about listening to web